Welcome, I'm Tom Sinclair, and this is Streaming Idiots on November 29th, 2017. Why do I mention the date? Well, because today is going to be a unique show. It's one that we don't do very often. So when we do, we want you to know it's kind of special. Today we're going to do a roundtable discussion on the state of live streaming. And I was tempted to say, the state of live streaming in the US. And I thought, well, but live streaming is everywhere. Well, on Earth. I guess it's not going, I guess it could be beyond the Earth, but that's a discussion for another day. Anyway, delighted to have you. If you're watching us live, thank you so much. We hope you'll come over to easternshorebroadcasting.com if you're not already there, because that's where you get the chat room. And excuse me if I'm a little croaky today. I'm recovering from the flu. I also want to give a big shout out for all the folks that are watching us later after the fact on YouTube. We hope you'll subscribe if you find the content worthwhile. And there are tons of videos that we've done in the past that talk all about live streaming. It's a treasure trove of how not to do live streaming. I'll be delighted to welcome our guests here in just a second. But before I do, I have a little bit of news. One is I've got the latest on the PTZ Optics PTZ camera NDI update. This is hot off the press, less than 5 minutes old, coming from PTZ Optics themselves, which says, drum roll please, do I have drum roll? There we go. They still don't know. Momentarily, daily, could be any time. There's just one more little thing they have to work out. And when they do, it'll be released. So my guess it'll be just kind of like wait, and then bang, all of a sudden there'll be thousands and thousands of updates going out there. If you want in on, here's the reason why this is significant for a lot of folks, is because if you're buying the camera, the NDI camera, pre-purchasing it, or have already bought a PTZ Optics Gen 2 camera, the PoE kind, you can get the NDI upgrade for half price up until the day that it's released. And then it goes from $300 to $600. So if you want more information about that, shoot me an email, tom@easternshorebroadcasting.com. We can sell you the camera. We can sell you the upgrade. By the way, here comes the commercial part of our giant infomercial, which is I'm an authorized reseller for PTZ Optics, which means we can handle upgrades and all the PTZ Optics line. I'm a reseller for vMix, which means vMix and vMix upgrades. A reseller for Magewell and Marshall and X Keys. I love my X Keys. I got an X Key 80 right here that I keep playing with and adding more function to. Each day I program one more button in vMix. It's so easy to do. It's just a shortcut. You press a button and pow, there it is. It's good. So is that the, oh yeah, and there's just one teeny little part of the commercial part, which is, of course, we design and build live streaming PCs for folks that need them. And we've got 2 on the workbench right now that we'll be sending out at the end of this week. And they're going to be gems. They're screaming. Oh my gosh. It's so much fun to get something that's designed to do the job than to force a square peg into a round hole and constantly be fighting with all the issues that you fight with when you're trying to make a tool do the job it wasn't intended to do. That's the difference between an off-the-shelf PC and a live streaming PC, is that it's ready to go, and it's a racer. It's a NASCAR racer. It's a dragster. It does nothing but go fast. Anyway, enough of that. So we're through with the commercial part of the info. One other thing that I will mention is that I'm delighted that, and this was kind of my big announcement for the week, although it's really not that big. It's big to me. But the folks at vMix have asked me to join them again at NAB in the spring and represent vMix at the National Association of Broadcasters Conference and Trade Show in April in Las Vegas. I'm delighted to do that. That's going to be a ton of fun. I can't wait to do it. And I was there last year representing vMix and met so many really, really cool folks. And look forward to that again this year. So if you're planning to go to Las Vegas to the NAB convention, you want to make sure that you include Tuesday as one of your stayover days, because Tuesday evening we're going to do a Streaming Idiots meetup. And so that will be folks from all over, could be all over the world, coming to NAB and coming to the meetup Tuesday night. We had a wonderful reception last year with all sorts of goodies and giveaways, and it was just a ton of fun. So put that on your calendar for 2018. If you don't go anywhere else in 2018, you want to go there. Let's see. I've just got a note from the folks at PTC Optics. It says, if you can check your email live, I just sent you something special you can share. I can't check my email live in the middle of the show. It's over on another computer. And anyway, sorry. Maybe we'll do that in post show. How about that? How much are tickets for NAB, says Byron? I think they're going to be free. I mean, if you send me an email, I'll send you a coupon for a free ticket. How about that? Michael Graves said the exhibit passes are free. At some point, they do begin to charge for them, but if you get in early, and then there's the registration also. So you want to just shoot me an email. I'll give you the full details on that one. So excited to have my guest today. These are folks that really have a varying background in live streaming. Excuse me. And I'm hoping that they can, I'm hoping that they won't say anything stupid. Although you never know with some of them. It wouldn't be much of a drop. But we want to talk about the state of live streaming today. And, live streaming it's an amalgamation of various technologies. It's an amalgamation of various products. So in some ways, it doesn't fit into the standard product adoption curve. Let me share that with you right here. And that's where you've got in the dark blue on the left, you've got the innovators, the early adopters in green, and the light blue is the early majority, the pragmatists, the tan is the late majority, the conservatives, and then the skeptics are the last ones to come on board. A different way of looking at that same graphic is to look at it like this. And so of the total number of people, eventually it represents 100%. It's not like it drops off. It's not like the live streaming industry is going to decline, I don't think. It's going to just reach whatever saturation is. And I think that's going to be an interesting part of our discussion today, which is, what is saturation? What is enough? What is too much? What is not enough? Somebody's saying in chat that dum-dums are good for a scratchy throat. So if you guys will allow me to do that, I think that's a great idea. We'll try that. Thank you, Todd. All right, so let me bring in our guest today, and let me unmute their microphones, because most of them are bad boys when they're off the air. And next to me is Jim Jacobs with Jacobs Media Systems. Welcome, Jim. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Tom.
And on the other side of Jim is Brandon Adams with Thomas & Thomas Media, Wiregrass Sports. Brandon, glad you could make it.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
Looks like Brandon is literally on the road as we speak.
Left site survey.
Okay. And then right below me is Ray Taluki with the Pulling Radio Network. Ray, glad to have you. It looks like Ray's on the road today, too.
Yes, of course, from beautiful Lake George, New York.
Aha. And then Michael Graves in the red from ZipDX. Thank you, Michael. Glad to have you.
Happy to be here.
And then last but not least, in the bottom right corner is Gerald Griffith with VoiceOver and VO Atlanta. Gerald, glad to have you.
Glad to be here, Tom.
So guys, you've had a chance to kind of consider the question that I posed to you earlier about where we are in the state of live streaming and where you are in the state of live streaming and where it might apply to the bell curve. Jim, let me toss the ball to you first and let me, tell us what you think.
Well, I think the answer to the question, Tom, is probably still being determined via the technology angles in all this. We're still trying to find the best ways to push audio, or not audio, but audio and video together out from remote locations, and that's still a bandwidth issue, and it's still a bonding issue for cellular. And in my mind, over the past, I don't know, 12 to 18 months, that technology really hasn't changed very much. There's been some other people that have come to the party from the technology standpoint, but in what I do, there really hasn't been a lot of change over the last 12 months. I mean, obviously vMix has gotten better with some of the updates there. So the tools that we use to put together our finished product is better. But from a technology standpoint, I don't think things have really changed that much, at least not in the way that we do things. I think we're still in a schools out situation in regards to what NDI is going to end up being. And again, that's going to be hardware dictated. I mean, there are folks still waiting on hardware stuff we were talking about coming to market back in the summer. So for me, things are kind of at a somewhat of a slow standstill in regards to where I think streaming is. From my perspective, I think there are people that do things on a higher end like we try to do them, and I think there are a bunch of people that have a laptop and a consumer grade video camera and a hotspot or a tethered smartphone that are going out and trying to do things. And from a business perspective, I think that's the question about live streaming that's going to become more in focus for people that are really trying to do live streaming as a business, is how you compete in that kind of environment. Because obviously I can't go out and do things the way I do them for what a guy with a laptop can go out and do it for with a consumer grade camera with one or two people.
Good point. Good point. Brandon, let's pitch that to you. What's the state of live streaming in your world? Did I unmute your mic? Brandon, can you hear? Brandon, we're not hearing you. Hang on a second.
I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay. We got you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's tough. I think it's still, probably easy to say it's in preliminary still. In my area, it's not adapted by a lot of people.
Okay.
So what we're trying to do, you pitch it to someone. I had someone, very critical the other day. And, so we got in a conversation about it, and, they said, you're trying to push this video thing. It's not going to happen. And I asked them, I said, when's the last time you picked up a newspaper? And they couldn't tell me. I said, well, where do you get your information from? Where do you get your news? And they told me, they said, generally a news feed. And, I didn't go in detail whether it be Facebook or blogs that they, subscribe to. But I asked them, I said, about 75, 80% of those news feeds that you subscribe to, that you look at, I said, what do you see on there? And it was like a light bulb went off. They said, it's a video. I said, exactly. I said, and that's what we're aiming for. And the other thing that we struggle with the most is, we go to a customer and we're pitching the idea or trying to get an event, and they said, well, we can just take a staffer and use their cell phone. So, in 50 to 150 words, Tom, how could you describe, what every guy on this screen does to a customer who says, well, I'll just use my cell phone?
Right.
It's impossible. You can't. There's so much more that could be added, not even counting the quality that could be better.
Good point.
But I still think, I still think there's a lot of growth that's going to happen in the live streaming. In the businesses, in the industry as a whole. My goal is, okay, it's new to the area we're in. not a lot of people are wanting it. You know, what can we get our hand in to get established and, you know, build this great portfolio and show people what we can do so that when our area catches up with the rest of the country and it's wanted, hey, we're the go-to guys.
Right. Head of the curve. Yep. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Good comments. Good comments. Ray, what's going up there in the northern area of the world?
Well, it's kind of interesting. You know, there's many of us that are involved in the Pulling Radio Network. You know, like we talked in a pre-show, we have guys in Utah, guys in Michigan, guys in Kentucky. You know, we have crews scattered all over the place, and just like Brandon was saying, you know, when we go and pitch this to, you know, promoters and, you know, fair boards and stuff like that to get the knowledge and get the product out to the masses, well, we can just, you know, we can just have somebody do it with a cell phone. It's just not the same. Fans are not going to sit there and watch a moving phone that's bouncing up and down with very low quality video and low quality audio for any length of time. Yeah, they may bump in and say, oh, yeah, I saw it, and turn it off and go on to the next thing. Where somebody like a crew like Jim has, they're going out. There's the, you know, they're setting up the tripod. It's got the fiber. It's, you know, there's a whole big piece that goes to it. Are we still in the infancy stage? I think we are. Motorsports wise, sports wise, the niche part of the business. And just like Jim said, you know, past 12 or 18 months, everything else has come up. We have great audio. We have great microphones. You know, the capabilities of software and processing of laptops and desktops are amazing. Where do we lack? Getting it out to the masses, getting it out on a Wi-Fi, getting it out via broadband. You know, we've tried some devices. We've been very successful with the devices that we've tried. They're not inexpensive. And that seems to be where I think we're, as I said, the ham and eggers of the world to the pros is where the fall is going to come from. You know, it's the hot spot to the middle place guys to the professional guys that are just below that ESPN grade or CBS grade sports guys, where you're going to see the big determinations of where everybody's going to lay out in the near future.
Interesting. Very good. Michael, what about things up in your area?
I think I come to this from maybe a little different angle than the rest of y'all. And that is because I was in broadcasting for a long time, but transitioned out to the world of telecoms. And which is all the same thing now, right? It's more or less, you know, the connectivity problems you guys are having that's the mobile carriers and sort of using consumer services to do something that really isn't a consumer activity. And their technologies roll out at a pace they tell you about than the pace they actually deliver, which is, I mean, they're doing great and amazing things, as you all have discovered, and everybody from call letters to networks is using it. So it's just a question of where you happen to be. I think we're in very early days, and I think it's tremendously exciting. And the reason is it's the democratization of production complexity and sophistication that used to require the funding of call letter network to make it happen. I mean, I remember working on an Olympic Games back in '96, and the mass of people they had there to pull that off in Atlanta was impressive. And that was standard def. And here we are, streaming in high def live over relatively run-of-the-mill internet connections. That can't but be a fantastic thing. I don't have the answers to how we all derive our living from it in a fashion that we would like to. That's another matter.
Interesting comment, and it's not so nice to have somebody from a traditional broadcasting background to weigh in on that, Michael. I want to come back to that in just a minute, but let's excuse me, let's get Gerald in, because Gerald has another, I think, probably a unique perspective on this. Gerald, tell us about what yeah, I knew that chuckle was coming.
Well, I think that things are still on the uptick. I think it's, you know, much like when I did photography, where more and more people started getting cameras because it was being pushed out there by a lot of the manufacturers and things. Probably the hurdle, I think, in people getting into this is one, the initial understanding that taking a picture where you can snap instant pictures, say from your phone and still be a part of the activity. Like you take the selfie and you keep going. But when you're streaming, you're married to that device. You're married to watching that screen for the most part. So there's a big difference in how engaged you are in the activity at that point. So when people do say, well, we'll just use a cell phone or we'll do whatever, they're kind of, not realizing that this isn't like taking a picture. This is like you have to be dedicated to that process in that regard. The concern I have with a lot of it, even in people, who are in the various streaming groups, is that I think we confuse capability with capacity. And what I mean by that is, we're always having these discussions about what the technology does and how the technology allows us to do more and more. And then the confusion is our capacity to actually deploy and effectively leverage the technology that's available. Because I would say, like Jim talks sometimes about upgrading different things, but Jim does more now with what he has than most of us who have more than what Jim has or have more advanced stuff can do, because he knows his tools. And he comes from a background where he knows how to leverage relationships, business, technology, and adapt to change. And I think sometimes, when we look at people that come in and out of the different groups, sometimes they think that just the technology itself will make you successful. And there's more to it than that. It's the ability to communicate about that technology, to have that potential client understand how your service is going to benefit their business, benefit their project, benefit their community. And that's where some of the challenge comes in. So I think, like a lot of technologies, the tech and the tools themselves are a part of the equation, but they're definitely not everything, because most of us probably know people who are great at what they do, and they don't necessarily have the latest greatest. They just know the tools they have very, very well, and they know how to leverage them. So I think we're still on our way up. But I think that for a lot of people who want to do the live streaming, they have to come to that conclusion that it's more than just the camera. It's more than just whatever that it's going to take to actually hang in there and make something of it.
Excellent. Thank you. I agree. Let me pitch a little different question to you for the second round, because most of you answered it very personally. This is what's going on live streaming for me in my world as a live streaming producer. Take your same world that you're in and flip it around to the consumer. What do you think the state of live streaming is for the consumers that are in your circle of influence, whether that's locally or internationally, wherever it is? Is your local community, if you're community oriented, is it embracing live streaming? Is it discovering it? Is it ignoring it? It's totally ignorant of it? Jim, let me pitch that to you first. You're in a rural section of Alabama, not the kind of place where you would think one would become successful doing live streaming, but you have found and are finding an audience. Tell me more.
Well, Tom, to me, I think this is a subject that kind of goes across the board, because I think you can just look at how people function in day-to-day life and understand what's going on here. I think consumers are actually further ahead on the consumption of streaming than we are in delivering it. We're still finding out things they want. I mean, the bottom line is there's somebody out there that wants to watch just about anything. So it's a question. It's a question of generating enough viewership to where you can become financially successful with it. And I think that's where the difference comes in this, that we have not experienced before in the broadcasting world or the call letter world, as Michael alluded to. I owned radio stations for 25 years. And, once you kind of got a license to a radio station, you had a viable business. I mean, it's like I told a friend of mine the other day, I've never seen a radio station go out of business. It just doesn't happen. It changes hands. Streaming is a completely different animal because there's no prerequisite to be a streamer like there is to get a FCC license to operate a broadcast station. But yet, as a streamer, you are broadcasting. It's just through a different technology. But consumers are, I mean, everything you look at statistically, people are consuming this stuff in droves. And I don't care where you are. I was talking to a guy out in Colorado a couple of weeks ago who was, you know, kind of poor mouthing his situation about not being able to generate enough to kind of keep what he wanted to do going. And he was saying he couldn't generate an audience. Well, I don't know many places that are a whole lot more rural than where we are. Now, we're not like way back in the woods, but we're close enough that we can see them. We just finished high school football up for us, and we had over 302,000 unique viewers to 16 high school football games this year. If you can't sell that, you can't sell. And it's just a matter of getting your niche and being able to monetize it by having the sales side of running a business work in your favor. But from a consumer standpoint, I think we're still way on the uptick on this, but I think consumers are ahead of us as producers as far as looking at this stuff. The business people is where the growth has got to come from. The person that you've got to go out and monetize this with, that you've got to convince they should be advertising with you instead of the newspaper or another radio station or the cable insertion company. That's the big challenge for streamers, for people that do what I do. It's not consumption. Consumption is easy. If you put a good product out there, you're going to have consumption.
Great comment, Jim. I like that. Let me pitch that over to Brandon. What do you think about Brandon? You're in a similar section, almost in the same state, just a little bit further south, near what? How far is Troy away from Dothan? It's kind of the same general area, at least in my little world. I don't think Brandon's moving. Hopefully he's okay. We'll let him try to come back, and we'll pitch it down to Ray. Ray?
Well, I think a big thing with it, Tom, and just like Jim said, you know, once you get more people, you know, you're putting out a good product, people are going to come to expect it. Again, I think a lot of the people who watch, the fans of what we've done, and we get a lot of feedback. What's nice about it is that everybody involved in a polling radio network are announcers. They're promoters. They're hearing summer pullers. They're hearing the feedback from the fans and the pullers, not only the promoters. So we're seeing more of it come back to us, so we know where to go in the future, and to able to, you know, increase, you know, the production scale of it, and able to put out better product, get larger in some cases, and put out more of it. I just think that the wave right now, it's going video. Everybody wants to see it. Everybody wants to watch something, and there's just so much of it out there that has yet to be captured, to be put out to the masses. And just like Jim has stated, and I've listened to everything we've said, and we've tried to take the same approach to it with what we're doing, is going out and selling it to that mom and pop that's local, and saying, this is how we're getting X amount of people to see your product. They're watching it, and they're intent, they're fans of it, they're into it, and they're going to see your product or your service time in and time out again throughout the, you know, entire production of it. So I think the better that we put product out, the more the fans and the people who are watching it are going to appreciate it and going to continue to stay with it.
Interesting. Interesting. Thank you, Ray. Michael, chime in with your perspective.
Now I am not engaged in sports, which is perhaps a big difference. But what I am seeing is more pertaining to events and conferences and such. And
Good.
what we're seeing is we're getting to the point now where there can be some fairly pricey conferences, technical conferences and things like that. Although they're not always that way. There can be some very pricey places where you might travel and go and meet and network and do all these good things. And people are starting to expect, particularly for the keynotes, but sometimes for the sessions as well, that they have access to a live stream. Sometimes it's free and sometimes it's pay-per-view. But if the conference is worth a hoot, people are expecting it now. And what's really being sort of downplayed is recording the conferences and then putting them online after the fact. That's getting a bit of a bad reputation because
Really?
seeing it 6 months later is not like seeing it now. Seeing it now is definitely better.
Interesting. That's funny because things like this kind of show, while I'm thrilled with the 300 or 400 folks that we get watched live, it's not uncommon for that number to skyrocket to 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 over time. It doesn't mean that folks are watching it all the way through, but the value of the broadcast tends to be long term, whereas the live in this particular instance, the live is good but not great. Now in Jim's instance, live football is probably 90% of the views he's ever going to get. Jim, wouldn't that be the case for you?
Not really, Tom.
Really? Huh.
Yeah. And it varies by the quality of the particular game and the teams that are playing.
Okay.
It's not unusual for us to get 3,000 to 5,000 YouTube views for a game that's in video on demand, whereas we do something like our coaches show where we might have, 1,500 people watch it live. We'll have 6,000 or 7,000 people watch it in video on demand. So it really just depends on what the particular program is.
Okay.
And I think that, unlike Michael, and I think I do good work. I've never had anybody call me and ask me, can I do a conference for them? I don't know, where those, and I think that's one of the things that's really good for this panel to discuss is where are the opportunities out there for people that can do this and, go do other things that make sense for them to do. I can do sports in my sleep, but I have found that's the only thing that I have been able to do that I can monetize to the degree that I do, that the way that I do things. I have another different perspective on this than maybe some of these guys do. I don't look at what I do as streaming. I look at what I do as putting television on the internet. I try to do what I view to be a television quality product that could go on any broadcast television station that wanted to take it. And that's a different animal than just going out and live streaming something. Now, that doesn't mean that I can't go do what I would consider a live stream of, let's say if I went to go do a volleyball game, there's no way I could monetize that to the point that I could do it in the quality level that I do a football broadcast, but I could still go do it and do it well. I would consider that more of a live stream than a television production. And I think that's one of the areas where the industry's got to kind of find a way for there to be some separation. And that kind of goes back to what I was talking about with, a guy going to one of my customers and saying, hey, I can do this too, and I can do it for 1/10 of the price that Jim's doing it for. And people can see the game and they don't care about all that other stuff. Well, that's not true, but some people buy into that. So that's where the separation in my mind in the industry's got to take place.
Well, and some of it too is, Jim, you and Brandon are in areas that are just not big cities. Ray, I'm not quite sure how close you are, but Michael, you're in Houston, and so the opportunities for people to come to Houston as a gathering place from all over are much greater than they would be for Troy, Alabama. So you're going to have
Right.
conference opportunities that Brandon's just not going to have. Now, on the other hand, Troy is the home of Troy University. So there might be opportunities in that sense that Brandon would have that Jim wouldn't have. Jim, you don't have a major university in your town, do you?
Well, actually, we have Jacksonville State, which is right up the road from us. But again, that's a situation where all of that is dictated by the conference. And Ray's probably got the same thing with Troy.
Well, you're
as far
talking
as
about
being able
sports.
to get in, sports.
Yeah, but I'm
Now,
talking about the smorgasbord of live streaming. So, the education
Yeah.
department has got presentations to make. The science department has presentations to make. The political science department, talk to that, Brandon.
Yeah, like the nursing program, the pinning ceremony that they do. We've approached this in a very broad manner as far as what we can bring to the table. We did a dealership, car dealership, a couple of weeks ago. Well, it was the Veterans Day holiday. They were having a big sale for that day, and they wanted to go live. Well, we quoted them 4-hour live stream. We went and set up. Well, it was about 25 minutes into it, and me standing there, I said, I can't charge my customer this. I'm not offering them anything because there was nothing really going on. So, we said, scratch that. We backed up, punted, and I stepped in as the director and said, okay, hey, give me the sales manager, give me this guy. Let's line up 5 or 6 cars. And what we actually did was we did 4 mini infomercials in that 4-hour span.
Yep.
And they were live.
Yep.
And that's I think that's really where live streaming is now, is that adaptation that we're going to have to do to form to what's needed at the moment to survive.
Okay.
I think 5-6 years down the road, maybe 10 years down the road, there won't be a problem of finding something to live stream or how to live stream it.
Well, based on that example, the
think that
next time you go to that dealer, you won't run into the same thing. You'll have a plan.
Exactly. And now we know how that works and what we need to pitch it to another dealership.
Right. Replicate.
May I pose a question?
Dive
and that
in.
is, to what extent do you think that being a car dealerships and car dealerships having generalized experience and knowledge with advertising, they know about quote unquote being on TV, right? So you don't have to sell them on the value of the media. Would you cross sell them into not being on the air and being essentially on the wire, as it were?
Not being on the air, being online, I don't think I quite understood you.
Well, did you find it easier to sell them a live video streaming project on the internet because they already understood advertising, as opposed to walking into some place that had never done a commercial before?
Right. The hitting, they knew, commercials and infomercials they're familiar with. We didn't approach it that way as a pitch to sell it that way. They know that eyes are on Facebook. They see, they make a post and they can see how many eyes see that post. So them knowing that knowledge, and then we say, hey, we'll do a 4-hour stream. They said, oh, well, over that amount of time, they estimated this is how many eyes could be on it. As far as what would happen and everything, it really wasn't discussed prior. I assumed that they would have someone to take care of that. It ended up working out well, but it was one of those on the fly adaptations, kind of like, in the streaming world, like we were talking about earlier, before I lost service, the things we deal with on a regular basis is how do we overcome this? How do we adapt how do we get live again? We've got to get back out there. And, I think that once we, get over those hurdles and get repetition on that to where we know and we respond quickly and, technology catches up to where, some of the hurdles we're jumping over, we don't face anymore. I think it's in the near future. We're not there yet, but it's in the near future.
I would make the argument that technology is already caught up. The price hasn't come down.
I agree.
Well,
Like I posted in the streaming.
I
posted in the streaming
have
media.
something to
group.
Ray, dive
There
in.
you go. Oh, I think a big thing with that comment is when I first got into this, and I don't remember who said it. Again, it could have been you, Tom, or Jim, or Armin Nissan saying the same thing. You have the iron triangle. You can have cheap, good, but it's it's not going to be longevity, or you can have good, and and it's going to be expensive. You're going to only get two sides of that triangle. You're never going to get three. To put out quality stuff, I think you do have to spend a little bit of money to get the little bit better quality stuff. We've gone through that. We used to buy cheap, inexpensive RCA cables to run 200 foot. We've gotten away from that. Now we've starting to look at the wireless product, that speeds up the time. All right. If we're there for an 8-hour, 6-hour session and this when you're doing sports, that time you still got to pay the guys, your crew set up. You got to pay them travel. You still got to feed them, so now it's instead of just a 4-hour event, we're there for 6, and drive time. So if we can shrink all that down, that makes it more profitable at the end of the day. But to go off of what Brandon's saying and what Mike is too, there's so many other avenues. Geez, I never thought of the car dealership thing. When we went to the largest ag expo in history last year, we went and we pitched 3-4 months before to several large players. One of the 4 big tractor manufacturers sat in their booth every day, talked to fans, talked to pullers, and then we did the small infomercials with that product. We went over some greatest product professionals there, and we did very well. Not only did we get a check at the end, but it also showed other sponsors, people that we have approached, one of the big 4 at what they're doing, maybe we need to do it. And the same thing with the other promoters that, we're going and saying, hey, buy our service, put your event on the web. This is how you can grow your event. They looked at it too and said, okay, if one of them big 4 that we've always chased, get a sponsorship or advertising dollars for, have joined their fold and got on board of the streaming bandwagon, we need to look at it too. So there is a ton of stuff out there. Again, somebody in the chat, creativity is the mother of all invention. And I think creativity in the streaming world is where it needs to be. You can make your own paycheck if you put the time and effort to it. You just got to be creative. You got to just put yourself up and say, this is what I want to do today. And I love Jim's comment. And Jim, I'm going to tell the boys, and I know a lot of them are watching, we put TV quality stuff on the internet, and that's what we need to do. And that's where we got to put that target.
Excellent.
Tom, can I kind of put a period on this?
Yep. Let's wrap it up, Jim.
Okay. I think if I were starting over today, the greatest single opportunity I see out there for someone wanting to get in the streaming business is to go to business owners and help them get a video presence on Facebook. I think that is the greatest single video streaming opportunity that exists today.
Absolutely.
Today. That's
Absolutely.
right. Today.
Today.
Absolutely.
Because it's incredible what's happened with people watching stuff on Facebook. That's only going to get bigger as Facebook itself jumps into buying rights to events and creates their own unique programming like we've seen HBO and Showtime and some of these others do. Facebook's doing that right now. They are becoming basically a video network. So you're going to like the car dealership. Anybody that has a car dealership today that doesn't have some kind of camera and streaming set up and using it almost on a daily basis is missing the boat. And all a person needs to do is have the ability to go out and talk to business people and show them the Facebook angle. And it's a no-brainer because almost everybody knows what Facebook is nowadays. It's not like you've got to educate that business person about Facebook. They know. Got
it. Jim, thank you for that. Gentlemen, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys taking time to pop in today and share your opinions. I got a lot out of it. I hope those of you watching at home did. We're gonna cut the show here, but we'll continue in post-show. So those of you that are watching us live and are in the chat room, if you have any questions for any of these guys, that will be the time to do it. So, gents, let's see. I'm gonna go right here for just a minute, and I want to thank all of y'all for joining in on today's broadcast. And let me try to mute some of those loud guys in the background. Remember NAB. Remember the the NDI update. If you have any questions about live streaming that you think I can handle, shoot them over to Tom at easternshorebroadcasting.com, and we will see you next week. Thanks for watching.